A lot of people here from different parts of the world have been concerned about China. And of course, being our close neighbors, we're watching how the situation unravels. India, because of its excellent vaccine coverage and the herd immunity, because we allowed infections to spread like other countries and didn't have a zero COVID policy after the initial lockdowns, India, along with other countries, are in a far better situation. Do I fear, this sort of thing happening in India again, like what's happening in China? I don't think so, because as I mentioned, our vaccine has been very effective and the coverage has been very effective. China sadly has not had both of those situations pan out, and we just pray and hope that they solve their issue. In fact, I was talking to some people to try and offer the Western vaccines and Indian vaccines to them as boosters, so they can control their hospitalizations and come out of even spreading the infection.
Are the Chinese
further.
interested in your vaccine?
I've requested to them to put political issues aside and just look at the bigger picture, because for the world it's important that China comes back also. And we just wish them the best in a speedy recovery, because if you look at supply chain disruptions, investments, uncertainty, people are still a little uncertain to make investments in this part of the world because of what's happening there. But of course, given that you've seen the response here, India is definitely by far the most reliable and chosen destination for investors. And given the choice, of course, India stands far ahead.
Mr. Narendran, I started by asking Adar about what's happening in China, because what's happening in China from a health emergency perspective also is potentially one of the biggest opportunities for India as global companies realign their supply chains. To what extent do you think at this moment, in the way things are, is India being able to benefit from the idea that companies need to look beyond China in this China plus one strategy of theirs?
I think that's playing out quite favorably for India, because the aftershocks of what just happened in China, but also what's happened in Ukraine and Russia, has made organizations, global companies look at de-risking supply chains. It's no longer about cost optimization, but about resilience, managing risks, etc. So when they're looking at another place beyond China, obviously there are other contenders. But India is special because India is not just a source, it can also be a market. And with the PLI schemes and the government trying to do more to attract investments, there is certainly a strong case for investments to come into India, which you've seen in electronics and traditionally areas where we've not seen so much of investments. So I think it's a good time for India.
Is India likely to be one of the beneficiaries along with, say, Vietnam, Indonesia, some other countries? Or do you see India as being the prime beneficiary because companies are now desperate to move part of their supply chains out of China?
The de-risking of supply chains actually started maybe a few years back. It got triggered first with Fukushima, because that disrupted a lot of supply chains. At that time, when people were looking at a choice beyond China, most people went to Vietnam actually. Textile industry went to Bangladesh. I think India lost out in that wave. I think at this time, India is being positioned better. I think the policies are more favorable for investments. The Indian market is also showing a lot more potential and promise. So I think now it seems to be that the stars are aligned in favor of India. It's for us to mess it up. But having said that, I think while at the central level we're doing a lot of work, finally the investments happen at the states. So a lot depends on how the states also deal with this opportunity. I'm happy to see a lot of states here trying to market themselves. But I think ultimately investors will look at the experience that they have and they really come and put money on the ground.